Hello, I'm Stewart Rome. I'm an actor and also a consultant for intellectual property. I came back to acting 3 years ago after nearly 30 years out of it, and I'm loving it ever since. Over to you, John.
My name's John Michael Foulger. I'm represented by Mary Liz Management. I've been an actor in excess of 30 years now. Good God. TV, film, stage. Haven't done any radio yet, but I'm working on it. Over to you, Nick.
Hi there. My name is Nick Goundry. I have been mainly a film and TV journalist over the past 10, 15 years. And I also consult on helping filmmakers make movies and TV shows in London. Catherine.
Hello, I'm Catherine Adams, and I'm a professional actor and voice artist who's represented by Rollo at RWG Management. And done that for 20 years, as well as being a professional scriptwriter, proofreader, supervisor, editor, and also a director and casting director for both stage and screen. Everything else you need to know about me is on my website, catherineadams.org. And over to you, Emma.
Oh, hello. I'm Emma Spurgin Hussey, and I'm an actor and writer and director and audiobook narrator, and I pretend to have various illnesses as a simulated patient and all the different other things that we have to do to patch a career together. And I'm still having fun with it, so this is a good thing. And you.
Hello, I'm Rory Wilton. I'm represented by Teresa at Film School in the Southwest. I'm a film, television, stage, radio, voiceover artist. I've been in the business for over 30 years. That's it. Angela.
I'm Angela Elliott. I'm a scriptwriter. Started out in documentaries, done drama, film, written novels in the past. Worked with a lot of very good people, including someone who once worked with Stanley Kubrick. That's my exciting comment for today. And we are going to be reading Fool's Gold, written by Phil Johnstone. And let me scroll down. Fade in. Interior house, living room, night. The electric glow of the TV lights up. The otherwise dark room. Peter Nichol, mid-30s, watches the screen with a burning intensity. Even when sitting, there's a tightness about the way he holds his body. It's as if by maintaining perfect physical control, he can contain his emotions. On the TV, paradise, a pristine white beach set against sky splashed with pink hue of the setting sun. Pete's wife, Grace, late 20s, strolls along the beach. Her long blonde hair bounces off her shoulders with each step she turns.
Are you filming me again? Creepy bastard.
It'll be good to look back on.
Worried you'll forget?
Never.
Back in the room, Peter grips his chair tightly, pushes his sadness deep down. On the TV,
I love you.
Grace looks straight at the camera with bright, mischievous eyes and a radiant smile. Interior, Peter's house, bedroom, day. Grace stares into the distance, her eyes unblinking and vacant. Her features are frozen. Skin, once so vibrant, is now pale and blotchy. Saliva gathers at the corner of her mouth. Pulling back, we see she is lying on a bed with a peg tube protruding from her stomach. The tube is connected to a bag of nutrients that hang from a stand at the top of the bed. Photos from a previous life adorn the wall. Peter and Grace outside the Sydney Opera House, their wedding, scuba diving on the Great Barrier Reef. The plump, short-haired carer, Rona, 50s, enters the room carrying a basin of water. She yawns as she places it beside Grace's bed.
Oh, Gracie, I am absolutely shattered. The sooner the new woman arrives, the better. Someone new for you to meet as well.
Rona cleans the saliva from the corners of Grace's mouth. Peter hurries past the door.
Peter, can I get a quick word?
I've got to get to work.
The new woman, Vari, she's not sure if she'll make it tonight. Family issue, apparently.
Peter is clearly uncomfortable being in the room, being next to Grace. He doesn't look at her during the entire conversation with Rona.
That's fine. She can start tomorrow.
Will you definitely be back on time tonight? Brian's taking me out for something to eat. We don't get out very often, so...
Aye, don't worry about it.
You sure? Don't promise if you won't be back.
Aye.
I was just saying to Grace, so she'll be meeting someone new soon. Isn't that right, Grace?
He turns and leaves without another word. Rona isn't surprised at his behaviour.
Okay, darling. It's time to get you cleaned up now.
She dips the sponge into the basin and squeezes the water out. Exterior, Canonish Mine Day, a dumper truck splashes through the mud puddle as it rolls past a row of porter cabins that serve as offices. A sign on the large office reads, Canonish Gold Mine. We follow the truck as it continues on its journey through the site. Workers in orange high-vis vests are gathered at the entrance to the mine. A mechanic works on an enormous and covered digger. The processing plant is in the distance, an ugly brown building made from corrugated iron. The site is surrounded by spectacularly steep hills where brown heather battles green moss for dominance. As the truck turns the corner, it spills a rock, which rolls along the ground and hits a boot. A hand reaches down and picks up the rock. It's Peter. He follows the truck to the processing plant where it tips the freshly mined rocks onto a huge conveyor belt. Interior Canonish processing plant day. The metallic hum of rotating motors fill the air as Peter walks along the gantry past an enormous spiked mill that crushes rocks. A pair of miners at the far end are skiving off, vaping and gossiping. The look of panic spreads across the face of the bald miner. Then he notices Peter approaching. He nudges his pal. They pocket the vapes and try to look busy. Peter stops beside them.
Hi, Peter.
Peter puts his hand out. The bald miner accepts he's been caught and gives it up. His pal isn't keen.
I only just bought it.
Peter, I don't give a shit. He reluctantly hands the vape to Peter. Peter continues on to the interior smelting area day. A silver-suited smelt operator stands in front of an urn bubbling with molten metal. The operator pushes a button on the control panel and the urn rotates forward. The glowing red contents of the urn trickle down, filling a series of cascading rectangular cases. This will cool down and become Doric gold bars. Peter watches from a safe distance. On seeing Peter, the operator leaves the smelt area. He removes his protective heat suit to reveal a huge frame, hands like shovels, and weather-beaten face. This is John, 50s. Peter checks they're alone.
You're still good for tonight.
Aye, oh God. How long do you think it'll take?
Probably the same as usual. Why?
I bought the wee man a new rod. Said I'll take him fishing.
The fuck did you do that for? We do this at the same time every week.
I know.
You can take him fishing tomorrow.
He walks away, leaving an annoyed John behind. Interior, office, evening. Certificates and awards highlighting Peter's professional achievements hang proudly on the wall. A framed photo of Peter and Grace with Uluru in the background is the only personal item on his desk. Peter watches groups of workers banter and joke with each other as they stream off the site. Exterior car park evening. Peter scans the car park. It's empty apart from a van and a car. Exterior storage units evening. Peter walks alongside a row of large metal storage units, stopping at the last one in the row. He unlatches the door at the end unit and pulls the stiff door open. He turns the light on to reveal hundreds of wooden crates, each containing Doric gold bars. Peter takes one of the bars and examines it in the light. It's dull brown, unlike the shiny orange yellow of a bullion bar. The van we saw at the car park backs up until it's level with a storage unit. John jumps out and opens the back door.
Is it the ratios?
I think they're getting 50% gold, 20% silver, and the rest standard base metals. If you've done your job right, they should only be getting 55% gold in each bar. Come on, let's get on with it.
Montage. They load crate after crate into the back of the van. It's back-breaking work. The sweat pouring off them is testament to that. End montage. John slams the back door of the van shut and jumps in the passenger seat. Exterior Glencoe evening. The van is dwarfed by a towering cloud-capped hills as it speeds along the winding road that splits the glen in half. Interior, exterior van evening. Peter slows down and kills the headlights. They're crawling along a country lane surrounded by trees. Light from Peter's house can be seen in the distance.
Is Rona still about?
Aye.
They stop beside a wooden shed. Interior, exterior shed evening. Peter opens the shed. This isn't the first time they've done this. Crates of gold take up at least half of the shed's floor space. They get in the van and lift the first crate.
So, how's Grace getting on?
No change. This place is getting full. Gonna need to get somewhere a bit bigger soon.
Bigger? I thought we were nearly done.
Another year should do it.
A year? Fucking hell. Peter, when we started this, you said it'd be a year, tops. Now you want another year. When does it end?
You know as well as I do, the price of gold fluctuates. The timeline was always going to be flexible. We take our time, stay with the 5% tolerance, and they'll never notice.
Until next year. Then there's another excuse. Pure greed.
What's that?
John looks away but doesn't hide his annoyance. They move another crate to the shed. A tense silence hangs between them.
So, what's the golden number before we can stop? You got your eye on a new house or a fancy new car?
Peter drops the end of the crate, causing the other end to fall on John's foot.
Oh, fuck!
He hops backwards, trips over one of the gold bars and onto the dirt floor. Peter looms over him menacingly.
You don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. It's got absolutely fuck all to do with money.
John scrabbles along the ground until he hits the shed wall. Peter advances on him.
I didn't mean anything by it.
I'm doing all this for Grace. She deserves that much.
This is the first time John's heard that. He sits in the dirt waiting. It's Peter's call what happens next. This is a man that is no stranger to violence. Peter takes a few deep breaths and lets the tension leave his body. He extends his hand to John, who breathes a sigh of relief. Peter helps him to the crate where they both take a seat. So, carry on.
So, is she needing new medical stuff? Machines and equipment, stuff like that?
Yeah? Oh, aye.
You should have said.
How's your foot?
Oh, he'll be fine. I've had worse.
You get going. Go fishing with your boy. I'll finish up here.
You sure?
Aye, go for it.
A wave of guilt washes over Peter as he watches John limp out of the shed. Exterior Peter's house night. A dirt-encrusted Peter spills out the van and walks towards his house. It's a modern building, all wood and glass, with a large balcony looking out over the surrounding forest. An angry Rona waits by the door.
I know.
You promised.
One of the millers went down in the plant. I had to stay back and sort it.
You knew I had a meal booked. I was really looking forward to it.
I'm sorry.
I can't keep doing this, Peter.
You won't have to, will you? We've got this new woman starting. Where is she?
She had to cancel. Some sort of family problem. Right. I'm done for the night.
And I think that's the end of our exit. So I think I'm going to kick off with this one because I was making notes as I was writing, and I tried to keep them in my head. And as I could only just write one word quickly as I read. There's way too much description here. Right from in every scene, really, and particularly when you get to the gold mine. I mean, I was just thinking, what page did I write? Page 2, end of page 2. Forgive me, I just get the. Yeah, I made a note about that Peter is clearly uncomfortable being in the room, being next to Grace. He doesn't look at her during the entire conversation with Rona. It doesn't need like 3 lines to say that. You just literally, when he walks through the door, he's uncomfortable, and that's it. And let people, let the actors do their thing, and let us. It's good to let the audience know that they've got some intelligence, really, and they can. That's half the battle with the story, isn't it? You like figuring out what's going on. And then I think, when we get to I've got another one, page 4, 5, the processing plant and everything. It's like, your processing plant, you're going to make sure everybody else knows this processing plant as well. But in actual fact, you don't need any of that, because this is going to take way too much time. I mean, you've got a whole bloody minute where we're going to be looking at every little thing in the know, because that's all background stuff, isn't it? It's kind of you know, so I think you've got to think of a way to compress that down, so that it's just reduced to the bare minimum, you know. And then what else did I put? And then the other thing that stuck out in my head was the fight. I'll let everybody else talk about everything else, but the kind of fight that's not a fight. I actually watched a fight at a bus stop today as I was waiting on my bus, and I thought, this is how a fight, and it put me in mind of it when I was reading this, because that was a similar kind of thing, except that it wasn't. Except there was this guy sat down who was blind, and he sat down at the bus stop, and another guy was sitting next to him trying to eat out of a plastic thing, and he was also disabled, and he had a wheelie thing. And as the blind guy accidentally bodged him, he nudged this guy's food, and this guy with the food went ballistic. And I'm thinking, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking, God almighty, this man's just had this drop on his foot. And that is, I mean, you know how much gold is bloody heavy. This is practically, you know, his toe's gonna be broken. Okay, if he has a gold box of gold, and he's gonna be screaming blue murder. And I'm thinking, this just doesn't, it just doesn't ring true. I think he's just gonna go off his head, and I'm gonna leave it to everybody else now. John, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, you just ripped that straight out of what I was thinking. I've done some work in foundries, and I've worked with precious metals, and gold is normally in 16-bar crates. You drop that on your foot's smashed.
Yeah.
You know, there's a good chance you'll probably lose your foot, but that's by the by. I'm definitely intrigued in it. I can understand through personal experience why Peter's not looking at Grace, because he's so angry with himself that he's caught in this loop. You know, the more he looks at Grace, the angrier he gets. So the more he looks at Grace, the angrier he gets. It's a horrendous loop to be caught in. As I say, definitely intrigued. I like the characters. First and foremost, if you don't mind, where and when? We have said this to so many people. I think we're going to get it as a disclaimer before.
We could have it underneath a where and when.
Yeah, we'll
rename the group the Where and When.
The where and when.
We'll have it as a scrolling bar that just says, if you don't put where and when, we're not going to read it.
Okay.
No, I like the characters. I like the fact that it's set in Scotland, because there's so many few things set up here. We always get missed out. Definitely enjoyed it, and I want to know where it's going.
Cool. Catherine.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. First note again, where and when. It's very, very, very helpful to everybody on the set or the stage to know when they are and where they are. There's a couple of little typos and formatting issues, so it might be worth getting a proofread. Nothing too major, but a couple of things in there. Always best to have it ready to go rather than ready to go in the oven. It is very interesting. I liked the bit at the beginning where he was, well, it didn't state it, but Grace was on the TV. And initially, I thought it was really good that he was projecting her somewhere. But then I realized afterwards, it's probably what he was filming in the scene before. But that wasn't defined. So we need to know what's going on there, because it would have been really quite nice. I was looking forward to seeing more sort of hallucinations of his not dead, but very unwell comatose or whatever partner. So that would have been quite nice to pepper that in here and there to... especially to pepper his outbursts. That might have been quite nice, but it was just him watching her on the TV. Again, that has quite a nice twist in it. It was he can only feel comfortable watching her on the TV and not in her current state. So maybe that's more of a character stress point. But it's interesting. A little confusing. Again, I agree with even with in steel toe capped boots that you'd have to wear, you'd need to be going to A&E. They're quite heavy. And one little bit that stood out for me, that bugged me a little bit, when I think it's page 5, when it says, Peter, I don't give a shit. Probably a formatting issue, but that was a little unclear as to whether that was meant to be a direction or dialogue. So yeah, typos and formatting, where and when. It is interesting, is intriguing. I'd like a little bit more fleshing out on the character of is it Rona or Rhonda? She started off quite layered and then dropped off the face of the. She became very bleh. She started off really interesting and then just became like she wasn't very fleshed out for some reason after a while. But I think go back and flesh her out a bit more. I think she's quite interesting. Again, it's only the first 10 pages, so with a little bit of a tidy up, well done. It's intriguing, and I'd like to see what happens next.
Okay, thanks. Rory.
Yeah, I like it. I think that there's a lot of intrigue there. I want to know what happened. I want to know why Johnny is so lagged in guilt. And obviously they're doing a bit of a heist to try and make money on the side. But nice sounding house. So has he been dipping in already? But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there. And I'm wondering what it is. I'm thinking it's a film. I think it's a film script we're looking at. And yeah, I'm sort of thinking, yeah, I'd like to read more to see exactly where we go with it. I can see it very clearly. The description is over-described, but yeah, I could see this film as we were reading it very, very clearly. So yeah, I'm intrigued.
I was 50-50 whether it was. I think it could work quite well as a TV series or a film. Actually, it'd be quite nice episodically.
Yeah.
Okay, Emma.
Well, I have found some interesting things in there. Cononish gold mine is real. I don't know whether
I did wonder.
Of course, it's a problem.
The description is such.
Yeah,
that, yes,
it's very detailed, isn't it? Yeah, and I mean, last I heard, because I've only been doing a tiny bit of speedy research today, just because I'm very curious. It was in trouble in September, so I don't know if it's gone down the tubes, but I just thought, be careful. Also, be careful about real names. There is a Scottish chap called Peter Nichol, because I did a little. I thought, I bet somebody's called that, because there was Peter Nichols, the playwright, and there's a Peter Nichols spelled exactly the same way, who is an ex-squash player, but he was a child actor. No, he was a child actor in a film called Malcolm in the 80s, and I thought, ooh, just be a bit watchful about that sort of thing, because people get a bit suey, so I would be careful.
Unless it is actually based on a true story,
it might be.
It could be inspired by something. Yes,
style and form as well as place and time is useful. Yeah. So what is it? It's just quite good to say a short film or a feature.
Yeah, even if it's just in what you send us.
The blurb. Yeah. And also, I wonder, would you be using the same actor for Grace then and now? How much time has passed? I can't quite get a handle on how old Peter is in the present. Is Rona's appearance important? I say this because we hear nothing about Peter apart from his state of tension to start with, and we hear about... No. And we hear about the look of Grace both times, obviously. And I know later on we do go on to hear a bit about John's appearance, but we get this a lot where women's appearances are described and men's aren't, so they're just taken as read as a person, and the women are like, oh, here's a fanciable woman, here's an older woman who is unattractive. And I just kind of think, get out of your own way with that, because it will get in the way of casting if you are very specific, unless it really matters that their appearance. Just because you picture it in your head doesn't mean we need to know that. It's probably the least interesting thing about any of us is the way we look, I think, mostly. Also names, actors get a bit peeved having to say, yeah, I played a bald miner or pal in this. It helps us invest in the characters if we have a name. It just somehow does, and is useful. Blah 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 blah. yeah, check through punctuation, grammar. There's a few little odds and sods. There's a slow burn to it. Yeah, I could have done with less mine description because in the end I just couldn't picture it. I was just sort of shorthanded it in my head as like some machinery does stuff, you know. So just maybe, yeah, maybe we don't need to know. I mean, yes, you've done your research, good, tick for you. But yeah, I don't, you know, I don't think we care, and I think it slows it down actually. Because to me, what's really interesting is Peter, because he's horrid. He's really unpleasant, and it's be really interesting to know what he was like at the outset. You know, was he always horrid, or has something sort of upset him? Probably an unattractive woman or something. I don't know, but something's upset him, and I just wonder, you know, what is it that's you know, has changed. So, will Rona continue in the story? I mean, you know, as Catherine said, I'm sorry, Scotland. I think it was my accent that made her become dull because I just went a bit wandering with that. But I wondered whether it would be interesting. When I first read it, I thought, oh yes, you mentioned this husband or partner or somebody who was going to take her out for dinner, and I thought John was her partner, and I thought if these people continue, that might be an interesting tension of, you know, he's having to unwillingly perhaps collaborate with Peter, and she's working for Peter. Because is Vari going to turn up or not? This other woman, because you know, it seems like she might not. Already, it's been set up there are family problems, and then she doesn't turn up, or is there something else going on with her? But yeah, I'm just quite interested in what might happen next. But yeah, I think don't slow us down. Don't let us get the chance to say no, I don't want to make this film, or I don't want to watch this film, or whatever, because yeah, I got a little bit mined out.
Okay, Nick.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's already been said. I think the problem, like at the moment, there's a lot of really intense world building, and it's being done in a very novelistic way, which doesn't. Which is, if this was actually being written for a producer, then you'd have real problems with almost every practical element of the film production process, because it's very specific in terms of the type of location, how it all works and stuff like that. And I think whereas the only way that any of these details are going to be important is if they directly impact the story in some way later on. So we don't need to know really what the ins and outs are of how the process works, unless this theft element of the, you know, kind of stealing gold in some way, if that becomes a central story, then it becomes more of a thing. But at the moment, because we've only got the hint that that's a story, there's no real story at the moment. You're kind of introducing the characters, although their traits are quite sort of nebulous at the moment, so there's not a whole lot distinguishing them aside from broad brushstrokes, and that's a problem as well. I think if you've got ideally we need a protagonist to focus on, so a sense of whose story this is going to be, who's going to have the arc that carries them through, you know, 90 pages or a 6-part Netflix series, or, you know, whatever you're actually setting out to be. If it is going to be a heist, then we need to have some idea of what stands in their way. So is there going to be, and we need that in these first 10 pages, so hints of security, hints of something which is going to be holding them back in some way to stop their plan. But I think probably the biggest issue is the novelistic style, because it is quite difficult to read, and because you're scripting every little detail, and as has been said before, you're not really giving the actors much scope to sort of respond to the beats of the drama, and being very specific about the geography, which is going to affect location scouting if it ever gets to production. Producers and directors are going to want flexibility as much as they can in terms of, you know, kind of what can we get away with to tell this story if they need to, because you need to assume as well, if you kind of get to like a production shooting script, that you're working with a low budget, in which case you're going to have to, like, well, how do I write this in a way that means I could film it in Stratford as opposed to, you know, kind of sort of remote Wales somewhere. And that, I mean, it may not come to that in the end, but if you're vague enough with it to give options, then the script itself is more likely to to move forward in terms of development, and a producer is going to read it and say, oh yeah, this writer understands the filmmaking process, and so they've got experience regardless if you have or not, and it means that your script is going to be paid more attention. It'd be different if it was, say, sci-fi or something. I always like to refer people to the script for Alien because it's so sparse. It's unbelievable. People always have in a state of shock if you read Dan O'Bannon's script for Alien. It's like one of the great templates. Virtually nothing is written, and yeah, obviously it sounds a great script. But so I think you just hints of that story and the characters in these first 10 pages, and really I think strip back on the details of the environment. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Stewart, I think we've still got you to go.
Well, very briefly, because everyone's done such excellent notes. I want to know if the bald miner's going to come back. No, sorry, I'm being flippant. This was a completely cold read for me tonight, so I hadn't even looked at this before today. I think most of us. And to be honest, I was a little bit confused at the beginning. I was going, hang on, where's this? Where's this being set up? The wife, the TV, what images of Australia or whatever? I thought, whoa, where is this going? And then slowly, quite quickly, I was starting to pick up where the story was going and lured in, which I thought was good in terms of being drawn into the story and the characters, which was impressive. Again, echoing what people have said, I think the character of Peter, there were kind of echoes for me of Breaking Bad, really, of kind of doing something really illegal, something going on where he's trying to do it for a reason, a conflict in his own head of what he's trying to do for his wife. And so there's a sort of echoes there going on. But like Nick said, I think there needs to be some kind of jeopardy going on as well about what the risks are for him of being caught and that conflict. Is he normally professional and a great businessman and entrepreneur, with lots of years of experience, that he's being forced into doing this? I kind of wanted to know a bit more about him, but that might come out later. The only little technical point I wrote down was at the end of page 6. It said montage, and then a couple of lines, and then it said end montage. And actually, it wasn't a montage. It was just a bit of description about them loading crates onto the back of a van and getting sweaty. So I just thought that wasn't a montage. Why have you written that's a montage? But that was just me being picky. So, but yeah, really interesting characters, and I'd like to know more. So,
I'm just going to make 2 quick comments. First of all, does Rona discover the gold?
That would
be a good one. The other one is, Phil, you're from Glasgow. You should know that Glencoe is surrounded by mountains, not hills. I've driven through Glencoe in the snow. I can tell you they're bloody mountains. That's it. Also, I'm not sure. John might put me right on this. Sorry.
Him putting her in a coma. Is it his fault that she's in a coma? That'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah.
The other, my other comment, as you were all talking, I made a note. John, you're in Scotland. You might be able to put me right. Pretty sure they're not called lanes in the Highlands.
No, they're definitely not called lanes.
Okay, that's
they
it.
Call them, if you talk to the old boys, they're called wines.
There you go.
Wines.
Wines.
Oh, wines. Sorry.
But they're single track roads anyway, aren't they? So
definitely not.
Not wines. Wines. Sorry.
Because if you said to them, "Oh, are these wines?" you'd probably get punched.
Yes.
Okay, and at that we'll call it a day. Thank you very much.
It's
anyway,
a word that means back lane.